You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in Jeff Kimmel, partner and CEO of Salenger, Kimmel Bavaro, one of New York's leading medical malpractice and personal injury law firms. A graduate of the Wharton School of Business and Brooklyn Law School, Jeff has built a reputation not only as a seasoned trial attorney, but also as a visionary business leader. Jeff, great to connect. Welcome in.
All right, Benny, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm happy to have this time with you and to share your story. You've done a lot of cool things in a lot of cool areas, media and everything. It's just there's a lot. You've done a lot of cool stuff. So congrats.
Thank you.
Congrats on your success. Yeah. All right. So let's start off talking a little bit about where you grew up and like what those early years were like. You're a New Yorker through and through?
New Yorker through and through. Born in Brooklyn, but moved out to Long Island at about 5 and really grew up on Long Island.
Long Island, that's awesome. Okay. Great place. So tell us what inspired you to pursue the career in law? And was there a moment, did you have a defining moment, or was it high school? Was it middle school? Where was that? Where did that happen for you?
Yeah, I guess the defining moment came in high school, but growing up and in school, I was always good at, English and writing and stuff like that. Those were the subjects that I did well in. I was also involved in student government, younger, not really high school, but before high school when you're like a little kid and you do those things.
Yep.
But it got me to, engage in public speaking. So from a young age, I was put in front of audiences and given speeches. So I really did become comfortable speaking in public. And so I had that skill, and for some reason I always gravitated towards being a lawyer.
Yeah.
And even when I was in high school, and high school is really the moment that I'm talking about.
Okay.
I did have a teacher who I loved, who was terrific, and his name is Marv Hazen.
Okay.
And he taught principles of law in different law classes. And if you got into his class, he took a trip to Washington, D.C.
It's amazing.
To see the Supreme Court live. And so I think I was in 11th grade.
Wow.
I was like, wow, I'm going to D.C. to watch the Supreme Court and in his law class. And that, I will say, really made an impression on me. Just the whole elegance of the room and the just the seriousness of it. And it was something that impressed me immensely. And it just confirmed that, I think I'm going to be going into law here.
Yeah, I understand that completely. Just kind of the gravitas of the situation of the court and hearing the justices speak so fluidly about the law, and even probably the attorneys as well. It was just one of those things you're like, wow, I want to do that, right?
Well, I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea what they were talking about. It was way over my head. But just the whole scene and just seeing what was going on and the lawyers and the interplay, I was like, this is cool. I think I could do this. And that's what got me going.
I love it. That's great. So we're back in high school. You got going by that trip. What an experience. What a great teacher to take you to DC. So you end up going undergrad. Give us a little bit about your undergrad experience, what you studied, what put you on that trajectory still furthermore towards law school.
It really didn't. The thing is, I got into Penn and I got into the Wharton School of Business. And I really was happy about that. But the truth is, I did still think that I was going to be a lawyer. And
right.
Wharton doesn't really produce many lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
But I got in. So I said, I got into Wharton, I'm going to go. And all my buddies in college were in the Wharton School, and I took classes with them. And we were all together, and that was a great experience. But at the end of the day, even though I had a business degree in undergrad, I still planned on and did go to law school after undergrad.
So Jeff, you mentioned public speaking at like an early age or like younger. Like, do you have any advice for somebody who maybe, I don't want to say struggles with it, but somebody who needs some tips while they're out there amongst the public speaking?
Well, the thing is, it's not for everybody. And I did it, and it's something that I would still get nervous about, but I always felt good afterwards.
Right.
Felt like I accomplished something, and then the more I did it, the more comfortable I became. So really, the advice would be is if it's something that you think you'd like, then you should try it and you should do it. But at the same time, if it's not for you, if you're going to throw up in the bathroom before you get to make a speech,
Yeah.
then don't do it. Don't do it.
Right.
What you really want to do in life is what comes easy, what comes natural, what
Right.
you're naturally good at. Like I said, I was good in English and writing, and I understand grammar, and I'm very particular when I'm reading something if the comma's in the wrong place. Not everybody's like that.
Right.
God, but that's me. And if it's not you, that's okay too. Like, find your thing. But if you're good at it and you like it, then do it.
No, I love that. That makes a lot of sense to me. So, you've always been a trial lawyer. You started at the assistant district attorney in the Bronx, and I think that that's like a huge piece of the story that we have to highlight a little bit here. How did you get into that? And you were later trying civil cases for plaintiffs, but tell us about the assistant district attorney and how you kind of took that turn.
Yeah. So coming out of law school, I knew I wanted to try cases, and by the way, that's what I thought lawyers did. I didn't know that
Right.
there were transactional lawyers, corporate lawyers, real estate lawyers. My view and thought process about being a lawyer and what lawyers do is they try cases.
Right.
And what drew me to that was the public speaking and just being able to make logical arguments. And not that I love fighting, I really don't, and I'm not really confrontational. But I do. The thing about being in a courtroom is it's confrontational, but there's a judge there.
Right.
It doesn't end up in fisticuffs, right? I mean,
Right.
There's somebody there that's controlling the situation, and there are rules. If you're going to get into a fight with your contractor because you don't like the work that he did in the pool, what's the end game? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Could you make them pay? Maybe not. Can you sue them? Maybe. But when you're in court on trial, there's rules of evidence, there's arguments to be made, and there's a judge making rulings, and everything is fair, or it's supposed to be fair. So that's that's what I thought it was to be a lawyer, was to try cases. So when I was in law school, I got involved in moot court.
Okay.
And I was pretty good at that. I was on the moot court team.
Yep.
I was on a couple of different teams, and I did a lot of arguments and brief writing and stuff like that. And so again, that was where my skill set was, and that's why I went in that direction. And so upon graduation, I wanted to continue, and I wanted to get into the courtroom. And
Yeah.
obviously, everybody in the field knows that the best place to learn how to try cases is the district attorney's office.
Sure.
So I got into the Bronx DA's office, and it was what I wanted to do, and there was no better place, I will say, to learn how to try cases than the DA's office. On day 3, I was in arraignments.
Wow.
Arraigning people who were accused of murder, and I was making the bail arguments, and we had people with us, but I was literally standing up in court on day 3 of being in the DA's office, and it couldn't have been better.
Wow, and that's amazing, and you really took it head on, because that's what you wanted to do. You weren't nervous. I hope most people who are doing that, like, I don't know if they get nervous or not, but you really took it head on. You're in front of the judge,
Yeah.
young baby lawyer.
Yeah, but let's be clear. I was nervous.
Yeah.
I was nervous. I mean, I tell this story, like the first 5 cases or so that I tried in criminal court when I was a young attorney. Right before the trial would start, I told the judge, when my adversary wasn't around, I said, "Listen, Judge, this is my first case."
Okay.
I said that 5 times.
Okay.
because I was going to do whatever I could to make sure the judge was maybe going to take it
Was
easy
this
on
at
me.
like a sidebar, or were you just like speaking from the bench, or
Well,
whatever?
it was. I think it was when my adversary was in the bathroom.
Okay. All right.
So I
Yeah.
would somehow let the judge know that this is my first trial.
Right.
So because listen, there's nothing more nerve wracking than trying a case. I mean,
Right.
I can say that I enjoy it afterwards and all that, but being in it, uh, actually being in it, it's when you're trying the case and it's all fluid, you're not really nervous. It's everything that happens before,
Right.
and all the thinking and all the pondering and all the hypotheticals and trying to take the
Yeah.
decision tree. Well, is the witness going to say this, that, or the other thing? And how am I going to react to this? How am I going to react to that? How am I going to react to the other thing? So it's just nonstop. So there's definitely nerves involved.
So what did the judge say to you when you kept telling him?
Well, it was different judges, I would say.
Okay. Okay.
So I was just trying to get, whoever I was in front of. I just want to get some sympathy.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay.
Have some sympathy from me. I've never been here before. But and the judges were terrific for the most part in the Bronx, especially for the young attorneys. They know that everybody's learning.
Yep.
Everybody's been hasn't been in the courtroom too often, and so it was just great. And it was a
Yeah.
lot of camaraderie. I mean, we the DA offices back then, the entering classes had 40, 60 people starting together,
Wow.
in
Okay.
each class. So it was literally like an extension of law school in the
Interesting.
sense that you have all these early 20, mid 20-year-old kids
Yep.
out of law school, rocking and rolling, getting ready to get in the courtroom and do justice.
That's interesting. Yeah. I never thought of it like that, I guess. Like you have a bunch of people from probably across New York, different schools, like going into, especially in New York. They.
Totally. And what I'll tell you also is they're still all my friends. And,
Yeah.
and we do business.
Yeah. That's great.
Attorneys that refer me work, I refer them work, because I don't want to play this, but we sort of go to war together.
Yeah.
It's like being in the trenches, and someone's on trial, and I would help them out, and if I'm on trial, they're helping me out as far as doing like research or whatever outside of the trial, and just supporting, coming in and watching. It's a bond that now when I left the DA's office, and most people eventually leave the DA's office, and then you see him in court. It's like, oh my God, there's my brother, there's my sister.
Yeah. 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 Are they? Well, you see the attorney. Is anybody ever afraid you're going to run into the defendant?
Offended? No.
No. All right.
Not really.
No, maybe not. Okay, so that's a good thing. So this is interesting because obviously you are a business person too. You went to Wharton School of Business, very prominent business, and at some point you had to say to yourself, okay, like I'm ready to like make the plunge, and I'm going to launch SSKB, and like So there's a lot there, right? Because
There's a lot there.
there's a lot there because you shift from ADA to like personal injury, like medical malpractice, your own firm. So let's
Yeah.
wrap that a little bit.
Okay, because it's not as straightforward as you think. So I'm in the DA's office, and listen, I would have loved to stay in the DA's office. There's nothing more fun than trying criminal cases
Yeah.
on the side of justice, as I thought at the time. And just having fun and having people around you who are your age, and it's all exciting. Listen, how many shows are out there about trying cases, criminal trials,
Sure.
all the shit. And I'm living that. The only problem is that they don't really pay too well. And,
Right.
I needed to make money because of the lifestyle that I wanted and
Yeah.
the goals that I had. And so when it came time to leave, the question is, okay, where do you go? And the truth is, I didn't know where to go. I looked to the people who were a little older than me in the DA's office that I knew and trusted. And I thought, well, where'd they go? And most people, when they leave the DA's office, they have what do they leave with? They leave with great trial skills.
Right.
And that's their commodity. That's what they're marketable as trial attorneys.
Yeah.
So where are most of the trials? It's not at Skadden Arps where they're doing mergers and acquisitions.
Sure.
It's working with insurance company firms, defense firms that represent insurance companies who are constantly getting sued for stuff, And most of the trials that go on in Supreme Court in New York are insurance related, meaning it's a car accident and there's insurance coverage, that someone slips and falls and there's a building and there's insurance. It's always against an insurance company has the money, but it's against an entity that is insured. And so the insurance defense firms are trying the cases along, against the plaintiffs' firms who are bringing the cases.
Right.
Now, when I leave the DA's office, I don't have I have tremendous trial experience. So in the courtroom, I'm very comfortable and I know what I'm doing.
Right.
But the discovery process, for the criminal versus the civil is night and day.
Okay.
Night and day. And the laws have recently changed in New York about discovery in criminal trials. But back then, we didn't really do much as far as discovery.
Right.
I would have a police report or a detective's report, and that was my evidence that I had.
Right.
And I would put the cop on the stand or whatever, and it's really his testimony, and then the defendant testifies or not, and then the jury makes a decision.
Sure.
One piece of paper. In the civil world, it's much more involved as far as discovery, exchange of records and information and all that stuff. And it's a process.
It is. Yep.
I knew nothing about that process. Okay. And it's intimidating. I'm like, I don't know what a preliminary conference is. I don't know what a bill of particulars is. I don't know how to do a summons to comply. I don't know any of this stuff.
Yep.
So you come out and I'm like, all right, get me in the courtroom. I'll know what I'm doing. But they're like, you're 12 years old. You're not going to go into the courtroom yet.
Yeah.
So, so the plaintiffs don't love hiring right out of the DA's office because you don't really know civil law.
Right.
And before you get to the court, you gotta figure out how the cases work, what evidence is important, how you get the evidence, how you do depositions.
Wow. Yeah.
There are no depositions in criminal land.
Right. Right.
This doesn't exist. So the people who left before me, almost all of them, went to insurance defense firms. And in New York, there's a ton of them.
Right.
And so then the question is, all right, well, which one should I go to? I had no idea. So, there are some insurance defense firms that represent, Geico and Allstate, and they just do car accident cases.
Right.
I didn't know anything about it.
So when they represent them, and that's an interesting point, like they might have went to the ADA to insurance defense, and then maybe after they learn the system, they go out and become a plaintiff's attorney. But
right.
So when you say they represent Allstate and do they have like a big contract with them? Like the defense firm will have is that how it works? Like they have a big contract with the insurance company?
Yes. And there are multiple firms that have contracts with Allstate.
Right.
So they usually have one big one that does most of the early work. And then there are other firms that then take over if the case gets to a certain point.
Got it. Okay.
And so there's a lot of firms. So, I'm mentioning Allstate, Geico, the biggest, biggest ones. But there are a lot of different firms that get Geico work or get Allstate work.
Right.
Give this firm, 20 cases a month, this firm 30 cases a month. And, they got cases galore.
All the time. Yeah. So you were saying, which one do I go to? Or what do I do? Okay.
Right. And I had no idea. And so a couple of guys, actually, there's a former Bronx ADA, who was the named partner in a defense firm that happened to be a med mal defense firm.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what med mal stood for.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that guy who owns the firm is a Bronx guy. And 3 guys in the 2 years before I left went to that firm. So let me send my resume there.
Okay.
So long story short, I get a job at a med mal defense firm.
Okay.
So that firm represents doctors and hospitals in medical malpractice cases. Now, not only didn't I know anything about civil law and the procedural stuff, I didn't know anything about medicine. I mean, I purposely didn't go to med school because I sucked at science and I wasn't great at math. So I'm like, wait a second, this is what I was trying to avoid. So for the first 6 months I'm there, I was in the medical library, and this is before, this, I don't want to date myself too much, but there was a library with books.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
And medical books.
Yeah.
And that's where I went because I'm open, I'm like, well, what's this case about? I have no idea what the hell I'm looking at.
Wow.
So it was a little intimidating to get involved in multiple things. I had no idea, but I did have buddies there who came for me, who were great and helped me out tremendously. And what all that did for me was it made me a specialist. And I can't use that word in New York in my advertising, but I became a specialist. I became, a niche player in medical malpractice, because that is an area that doesn't have many law firms in it.
You can say you focus on it, right? You focus on
Yeah. You handle those cases. You focus on it exactly. Or it's like.
Did you have a mentor when you got there? Like, was there like an older attorney? I know you had your buddies, but did you ever have like a mentor there?
I did. There were definitely some of the older attorneys, and one specific who was a former Bronx ADA who was there, maybe 20 years before me.
Okay.
Who I really, really liked, and unfortunately, I didn't get to work on his team.
Okay.
Maybe if I did, I never would have left. I don't know. But so yeah, I did have mentors. I wasn't there that long.
Okay.
I really wasn't there that long. I was there for about a year.
A year. Okay.
Which my plan was to be there for at least a couple of years, just because that's what I thought I would need to really get a handle on the procedural stuff of civil law. And I knew I wasn't trying a case. I mean, that's the thing. You have good trial skills, but it's going to be a while on the insurance defense side before the insurance company would allow somebody to try a case. I'd have to be a partner. They're not letting associates try cases.
No. So Jeff, what would you think, like, you're only there a year, but like, what would you think, like, if you got to see any of the correspondence from like a plaintiff's attorney, like a big personal injury attorney, like, were you like, oh man, look at this letterhead, like this looks cool, like I want to do this, like, is that sort of like what, like, I don't know, like, what was that like?
Well, what was cool about that was, I noticed quickly that the plaintiff's lawyer in a case mattered. The letters, so without naming names, there was a really good attorney on the plaintiff side in New York, right?
Okay.
Who was well known. And so the thing about insurance defense work as a lawyer is you're always reporting back to the insurance company. They're the boss, really. Even though people may be owners in a firm, they really have to answer to the insurance company, because that's where they're getting the business from.
Don't they tell you to cut your hours back and like this wasn't worth that much and that I don't know much about it, but
that's a whole other thing. I never was good at keeping hours, because you have to keep track of your time.
Yeah.
That's, billable hours. That's a thing. And I'd be on the train home. I'd be like, oh my God, what did I do today? I forgot to write it down. I'm writing down.
I know.
Right. So, but what I learned quickly was, because everything that happens, you got to write a letter to the insurance company telling them what happened.
Okay.
Right? And so I had a few big cases, right? Medical malpractice cases are generally big. And there's this really good attorney that I knew even of before I got there, just because of reputation. And the first sentence in every letter sent to the insurance company about that case was, "This is a John Smith case," and whoever that lawyer was.
Okay.
That was the first sentence. Not the case is good, the case is bad. It's a brain damaged baby case. It's a cancer case. Nothing. It's a John Smith case.
Okay.
I was like, well, geez, who's this guy? I knew who he was. I'm like, everybody's talking about, like, his name on that case put it in a different category.
So that was the insurance too. They would say,
yes.
Wow.
Well, that was the lawyers reminding the insurance companies, hey, here's a report on this case, but remember, it's a John Smith case.
Okay, that's interesting.
And so
he's going to take this one to trial, and he's going to school us if we keep.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right.
Exactly.
So we're going to have to spend a lot of money, because this is going to go past like.
Right. So what my reaction to that is, I want to be John Smith.
Right.
I want to be who everybody's writing about.
Right.
So, I don't think that was in front of my mind at the time, but I was like, who the hell is this? And how come everybody's talking about him? What about the case?
Yeah.
We care about like the good and the bad about the case. Isn't that what's important? No. Right. So that, that obviously struck me. And the other, so the other part of why I was only there for a short amount of time was because an opportunity did arise to come to the firm I'm at now.
Okay.
But the other thing I'll say about how I knew my time was going to be short there is something happened early on where so I come out of law from the DA's office, and I'm hungry. I'm aggressive. I want to make money, and I'm trying to figure out how can I hustle? How can I make more money than the salary I have?
Yeah, no, I love that.
The DA's salary was $3. So then to get me to the insurance defense firm, they gave me $4. I'm like, okay, that's good, but I'm still not killing it. So here I am, and I'm not really sure of the business of law. No, there's no courses that you take in law school that teach you how to make money as a lawyer and what it means. So I'm trying to think, okay, here I am at the insurance defense firm, and how do I get more than my salary? Like what is it? And so I do see here and there that somebody brought this case in to the practice, a partner. And I'm like, well, how did that guy get this case in to the firm? Because then I'm asking, well, does he get money for that? They're like, oh yeah, if you bring in a client, and the clients for the insurance defense are insurance companies. Right. So I'm like, I don't know what insurance company.
Right.
Like, I don't know. And so it was explained to me that, insurance companies are made of people, and people who make decisions about where the cases are going to go. And there is a person or people within the insurance company who has this power to assign them out to law firm A, B, or C. Right. So I'm like, oh, so if I can hook up with that guy or gal or whoever it is at the insurance company and convince them that this firm I'm at is great and we should get more med-mal cases our way, and I originate that, then I'd make more money, right? So it was the Christmas party, right? And I had recently discovered these facts.
Yep.
And so I go to one of the name partners at the Christmas party, and I say, hey, I said, this is great. I'm having a great time at this firm. I learn a lot. I said, what do I need to do to be able to hook up with somebody in an insurance company so I can bring business into the firm?
Yeah.
I thought that was a good question.
Yeah.
So he looks at me and he says, you do the work. I'll worry about bringing in the business.
Okay. That was it.
So the ceiling just sort of collapsed on me.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Deflated at the Christmas party.
I'm like, oh, okay. So now I know, I learned that it's very competitive and people are very possessive about the contacts that they have within insurance companies.
Sure.
Because that's everything, right? That's the lifeblood of the firm, is how many cases does this client give to us per month? Because we build those cases. That's how we as a defense firm make money. But why should, if the boss says I can get that insurance company here, why do I want Jeff to bring him in? Because now I got to cut Jeff in,
right?
And that's gonna reduce the money I'm making,
right?
So the view he took from that is, I'm a competitor.
Yeah. Well, also you're going to spend your time now looking for people to bring in instead of doing the work that they want you to do.
Well, but I would argue there, I'm getting them money too.
Right.
So everybody's making money when the case comes in. I just got to get my piece because I originated it. Evidently, they didn't need more rainmakers, right?
Right.
So pretty clear that moment that my time here is going to be short.
And it was only one Christmas party that you did go to.
One holiday. I'm out. Right. But so, no, I didn't walk out the door back then, but so at that moment, and just as the universe would have it, a friend of mine came within a few months of that encounter and said, hey, there's this plaintiff's firm that I know of that's hiring, because he had met them in court and knew of them, and said, you should really send your resume there. I don't know if you're thinking about leaving. I said, well, I wasn't thinking about leaving today, but now I'm thinking about leaving.
Yeah.
If you're telling me there's somebody who's good that I can send my resume to. So I made up a resume and I sent it.
Right. Wow.
And it was just all timing.
And what firm was that?
It was Salenger and Sack.
Okay. All right. So you really tell us about the process to working your way to, putting your name on the letterhead. That's really inspiring and ambitious to be able to do that.
Yeah, and it's a story, and Sal, I was so fortunate to find these guys, or that they found me, or whatever it was. But it's funny because when I first got the name and the address, sent the resume, I didn't know who these guys were, and this is, I couldn't Google them. There was no internet at the
Right.
time. I'm like, and for whatever reason, I thought they were going to be a couple of guys who were a little older than me, you know.
Yeah, totally.
I figured, the way that the guy described it to me, oh, they're really cool guys, you're going to love them. I'm like, yeah, okay. I show up for the interview. It's like my father and my uncle are sitting there.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, these are old guys.
All right.
I always say, oh, back then, when I came, they were probably in their 60s.
Okay.
But I was 30, so that's old. So I was like, oh, okay, these, and we hit it off, and it was great. And at the time, there was only one other lawyer or two that they had. And I came on, and the real reason why they were attracted to me was, I think, because my background, and also because I was in medical malpractice. And I was at a med mal defense firm, and they at that time had cases, or they knew of this firm, okay, and many cases that they would get that were med mal, they would refer out because they weren't really involved in medical malpractice. Now, Marvin Salenger, who is Salenger Zach, he is a legendary lawyer in our field in New York, and everybody knew Marvin, and Marvin passed away recently. But everybody knew Marvin. Everybody loved Marvin. Everybody has a Marvin story. Marvin is a legend. And so but the reality is, at that time, they really did not have the medical malpractice abilities, in the sense that it's a lot to work up.
Right.
They didn't really have attorneys at the time who were working up medical malpractice cases. You sort of got to know how to do that. You got to be familiar with the medicine. And Marvin could try any case ever in the world, but someone's got to prepare it. So at the time, there was no experience in the firm preparing medical malpractice cases, which is a separate animal from car accident cases.
Right. Okay.
So they were more than happy to bring me on, also knowing that I had the connection to the DA's office, and I had people, and I had connections, but the truth is, at the first interview, they said, we're going to give you a salary that's a little more than you're making, but you're also going to be able to bring in your own business. And so I just got over this holiday conversation with my other boss, who said, don't worry about it. And so my head was still spinning from that. And so when Marvin said that to me, I remember this like it was yesterday. I said, well, what do you mean? How am I, not because now I'm on the other side. I'm like, how am I going to bring in business? And he says, you're going to bring in business. You will. That's what you have to do. If you want to make money as a plaintiff, you have to bring in the business. And I said, well, how do I bring in business? We'll teach you.
Yeah.
We'll teach you. But they what they taught me was how to network.
Right.
And they knew I had a whole stable of lawyers from the DA's office.
Right.
That I was connected to, and law school and all that stuff. And so that was it. They hired me, and I started working on med mal cases, and that is now the biggest part of our practice.
Wow, that's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. Yeah. So Marvin was like a bit of a mentor, right? Teaching you, like telling you, like to network, and just like he gave you the opportunity to, like, say, bring in cases, and it kind of felt like a moment where obviously something you want to hear, but he kind of wanted it. It was like a teachable type of thing. Yeah. Well,
listen, in my life, Marvin was the most influential mentor, my professional life, obviously. People who don't even know him, he's had conversations with him, and then they say, oh, Marvin's my mentor.
Wow.
Everybody loved Marvin, and he had a way to connect with people that was amazing.
Yeah.
And I said this at his, I gave a eulogy at the service. And I said it, and I said, everybody in this room, every lawyer in this room thinks that they are Marvin's best friend.
Wow. Yeah.
And everybody laughed, because everybody did think that.
That's
because that's what he was able to do. He connected with people on a level, on an intimate level,
yeah. Yep.
because he would get to know them, just like you're doing in your podcast. You're
No,
asking these questions,
thanks. Yeah.
and no, but it's true.
Yeah.
So when you connect with people on that level, they don't forget, and he didn't forget.
Well, I think that's so important, and that's a lot of like what we talk about here is like how important the personal connection is, and we lost a little bit of that over COVID, but I think that's like, that's very important, and that that's great that you were able to have that, have that time with him.
It was great, but what I'll also say, the other side of it is, in the beginning, I tried to be like him, right? And I saw how he communicated with people. I saw how he connected with people, and his background and his life experience was very different from mine.
Yeah.
And when I tried to do that, and just as importantly, I'd second chair him and watch him try cases. And you couldn't pay for a ticket to be Marvin's second chair. That's like a gold.
Wow.
So right. So I learned so much, so I see how he was interacting with people. I see how he's trying cases. And what was my first instinct? I could do that. I'll just do what he's doing. Right. I failed miserably.
Really?
Because I'm not Marvin.
Right.
Nobody's Marvin. And I sort of lost my identity because I was so enamored with his success and his abilities and how people loved him. I mean, he'd go to court, there'd be a crowd of people around him as soon as he walked in because everyone loved him. And only when I realized that if I'm going to try cases, I'm going to network, I'm going to be with people, I got to be me.
Yes.
I got to be myself.
100%.
Yep. I gotta see what he does and appreciate it, but I gotta make it mine, and I have to develop my own strategy,
100%.
my own style, and my own voice. And there's a lot of introspection to get there, especially as a trial attorney. Like, who do I want to be in front of the jury? Like, I in the beginning, I was trying to be Marvin, and he's crazy in the courtroom. Like, he's jumping around, he's going nuts. And so I was like, oh, I'm jumping around too, but I look like an idiot because I don't jump around.
Yeah, that's not you. It's just not how
me. It wasn't me, but I was trying to be him, and it wasn't working. And jurors, they're the smartest people in the world.
Right.
They notice everything, and they know when you're full of crap.
Right.
I was full of crap because I was trying to be somebody who I wasn't, and it took time for me to find that voice, to find that style, to find that rhythm. And it was all like in my trial prep. It became, what I did in preparation. Marvin, God bless his soul, he barely prepped. The guy, he could just get up and do stuff, honestly.
Right,
and because when I was second chairing him, I would do all this stuff in prep, and I'd give it to him. He never looked at it.
He never looked at it.
I swear to God, I'm like, why am I doing this, Marv? I got it. He said, I read it last night, whatever he said.
Wow.
So, and I could not do that. I'm like an over preparer. That's my, I'm super prepared. And so when I finally said, I got to be me and do this my way and talk to people my way, then I started to see success. But so there's great qualities to mentors, and there's no better mentor that I'll ever come across than Marvin. But still, you still got to be who you are, and you have to figure that out. And I give a lot to young attorneys and law students about trial work and trial prep and all this other stuff. And that's really what I start and end with is you got to be you.
Yes.
Personality. That personality has to come out. That's your truth. And that's what you're trying to get here is to the truth. And that's the most important thing is just be you.
But that's who people like the best is when you're not trying to be, not to be cliche, but that's who people actually like the best when you're just being you. They don't want to see somebody who's not, because at the end of the day, and this happened in your experience a little bit, they end up seeing that it's not really you. You know what I'm saying? So if you're trying to be like Marvin or whatever, so you got to be yourself in those situations. So you were talking about medical malpractice. So those are some of the most complex cases in the field. Probably one of the reasons you did join the firm a while ago, you mentioned, because you were handling the defense side. What do you see now as the biggest challenge and opportunities in holding healthcare systems accountable today?
Well, it's the public perception of these cases because of the resources that the insurance companies that insure the doctors and hospitals, have. They are the richest organizations in the world. And
Right.
if they want to spin something and put it out there, and nowadays it's not taking an ad out in a newspaper and saying, somebody's telling lies about our product or whatever, and it's really the evil trial lawyers who are money hungry and they're just trying to make a buck.
Right.
Not now with social media and all these new ways to send messages, they have much more money than we as the plaintiff's bar has to get our side out, and they're pretty good and effective in affecting public opinion and disparaging trial lawyers and what we do and how we do it. So I think
Really? Where does that go? I don't want to say I've never really seen any of that, like
well,
literature, propaganda, or
it's in politics, number one.
like tort reform, that whole thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. What, talk about caps on damages.
Right.
Like that's one of the biggest things, for lawyers is like that. What do we have over them that besides money? Because in civil law, all that's at stake is money. And if they're capping damages, what are they saying? They're saying that these people's lives are only worth X amount, and
Right.
you're not going to let a jury decide. And if a jury decides it's worth this, the law says it's worth only $250,000, because that's what in certain states they have caps that you can't get more than $250,000 in a wrongful death case. What?
Yeah. Yeah. That's yeah. That's an interesting argument. I haven't even really thought about it like that, Jeff. Like this is what the person's life is worth. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Just to piggyback on that, what I'm looking at now, what my firm has gotten into is mass torts.
Right.
And so it's a very smooth transition from med mal, because a lot of the mass torts involve drug products which affect people medically and their health. So we have that understanding and that knowledge. And these companies, Pfizer and other drug companies, they when the trial lawyers in this area get involved, they expose the fact that these drug companies knew that there were side effects to drugs that are going to kill people,
Unbelievable.
hurt them, and yet because they can make X amount of dollars, even if they have to settle a few cases, the product is out there, and there is no real oversight or reins on those companies other than trial lawyers in mass torts who are bringing thousands of cases against them to say, hey, you got to take that off the market. You got to change the formula. You got to fix the product.
And I actually have you led right into my next question. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to cut you off. I just want you to know, like, which are the ones that have the most impact on the public, like the mass tort, like the the products.
Well, right now, Ozempic.
Right.
Listen, it's the diet industry.
I was going to ask if you knew anything about that. I feel like I wasn't sure if there was a sample size enough yet, where they could see the side effects and everything.
Oh my God! Well, this is what's amazing to me. So, Ozempic is a drug that people use to lose weight.
Right.
There's no bigger market in the world than the diet drug market. Everybody wants to lose weight, and there are certain side effects, and it's interesting with Ozempic and these weight loss drugs, because there's two tracks of injuries that are currently becoming evident, and they're already in suit in different places and in different numbers, but there's two tracks of this mass tort, which is a huge moneymaker for these manufacturers. One of them is gastroparesis, which I'll explain that if you want. That's what happens in some cases, and that sort of makes sense, and I'll explain that. And the other one is NAION, which is blindness. It's resulting in blindness in people, a very specific diagnosis for blindness. And if you want me to explain how that is,
Yeah.
the way Ozempic works is it essentially affects the signal that tells from your stomach, from your brain to your stomach and back, that you're hungry, right? There's a chemical reaction going on and the signal being sent when you're hungry that tells you to eat.
Yeah.
This drug suppresses that, okay? And it stops your stomach from telling you you're hungry. And it also slows down how your stomach is working, okay? And so that makes sense. So essentially the people are, I don't want to say starving, but they're not eating because they don't think they're hungry, okay?
I
Because
feel like that wouldn't stop me. I feel like I would still be I would still be eating pizza no, all right. So
yeah, so it really works. Unfortunately, in some people, that effect gets exacerbated somehow. And instead of telling it to slow down the stomach to the brain, it stops. So gastroparesis is like a paralysis of your stomach.
wow.
It stops moving. So the food that has to pass from your stomach into your intestines doesn't move. So that causes a blockage because it's just sitting there. And then your bowel starts to die because necrosis sort of sets in. And then you need a major surgery to remove the obstruction and to remove dead bowel. And it's a very dangerous thing and you could die. Okay. So that you could sort of see. The other road that this takes as far as injuring people is people are becoming blind because this message from your brain is getting screwed up and it's telling the artery that attaches to your optic nerve somehow gets the message that it has to stop or it becomes paralyzed. So the blood flow that your eye needs that comes into your optic nerve to make your eye work stops.
Wow.
And it's irreversible. Now it's harder to see how the hell could that happen. It's happening. There are people who are already in suit with this, but it's still very early. It's still very early.
Yeah, it's early.
So these, but could you imagine if this is a risk that affects 2%? 2% of this diet drug industry is hundreds of thousands or millions of people.
Yeah. Wow.
So this is why in the mass torts these huge firms get involved and they go toe to toe with Johnson & Johnson, with Pfizer, with 3M, all these big manufacturers because they have the best lawyers. So it's got to be a fair fight. So that's how that industry, and it's a really important industry. Just like for the med mal, I feel like in New York, especially there is no oversight of doctors. There is a branch of the Department of Health called the Office of Professional Medical Conduct that supposedly, disciplines, sanctions, and punishes doctors and hospitals. They really are toothless, especially in the last, since COVID. I don't know I haven't heard anybody get disciplined for anything.
Right.
So there really is no oversight of what doctors are doing. And there are bad doctors. Listen, the vast majority of doctors are terrific.
Mm-hmm.
And they are. But the few that are out there, and I will say many doctors are that I see are recidivists. In other words, they mess up once, they mess up again. It's like a few bad apples, and nobody's taking away their license. No one's going in there and saying you can't operate this way, you can't do it. No one's really doing that. So they keep doing committing their mistakes or whatever, and it's not intentional. But there's no real oversight of what doctors are doing. So this is why lawyers, in my opinion, of course, are so important, because there has to be a check and a balance over what doctors are doing. And of course, I didn't go to medical school. And so that's why in malpractice cases, I need experts,
right,
team to say, I did go to medical school, and this is the way you're supposed to handle this. This is the standard operating procedure, good and accepted medical practice. And this guy didn't, he fell below that or whatever.
I don't know, I thought your explanation was pretty good on the Ozempic stuff. So that was
well, yeah. I mean, everyone in my family thinks I'm a doctor, and whenever someone's sick, they call me before the doctor for the diagnosis.
Yeah, that's
so
fun.
That's the way it goes.
So tell us, who is, and this is probably self-explanatory, but who's coming to Jeff and your firm for help?
What, the clients?
Like the clients, yeah. Who are your clients? Like, I mean, not like who are they? Like, I'm not asking to break any confidential, but like what? Who are like? There are people who are injured, obviously, by maybe medical malpractice. Like,
Yeah.
give us an idea of like who it is.
Well, that's the thing. You talked about marketing and stuff before. The tricky thing about our work and getting business, there is no demographic for personal injury. Okay.
Okay.
Anybody can be in a car accident.
Okay.
Anybody can trip and fall. Everybody goes to the doctor. Anybody can get screwed up by a doctor's
So I
mistake.
guess my question was to restate it. Like, what kind of cases are you taking? Like, what kind of cases does your firm accept?
Right. So we're able to be selective,
Okay.
because and I made a business decision that I don't necessarily want to grow in numbers. I want to grow in quality.
Okay.
So in New York, in car accident cases, there's a threshold. I don't know if you're familiar with the no fault threshold. It's a big explanation, but essentially in New York, your injury has to be of a certain level of seriousness in order to qualify, or else, even though if you're at a red light, you're hitting the rear and you're injured, you don't automatically win, even though you're not at fault. Your injury has to also be at a certain level of seriousness. And
Okay.
if it's not, the defendants can make a motion before a trial and have the case dismissed. So
Okay.
you can spend a lot of time, money, and effort working up a case, and it can be dismissed because the injury didn't reach that threshold. It's not serious enough. So my decision was, I don't even want to deal with this.
So what do you do if it's not serious enough? Do you go through like your own
I,
insurance or what? How does that work?
well, if it's not serious enough, then you have coverage for medical health. In other words,
Okay.
no fault. That was the give and take when they passed the no fault laws. They said, well, even if you don't have health insurance, John Doe, even if you have no health insurance, if it's a car accident, we're going to cover it. The no fault is going to cover your health, so you're going to get better. You're going to get treatment. But if
Okay.
you want to sue for your pain and your suffering over and above the treatment you need, then you have to have a serious injury. It's got to be serious.
Okay.
And that the word serious is defined a million different ways in the case law that
Interesting.
defines
Yeah.
what serious means. So I said, I don't even want a case that's a borderline threshold to have to deal with this motion, because that's a lot of work. And if the injury is not that serious, the value is really not there.
Right.
And listen, there are firms in New York that make a living on threshold cases, and because they know how to fight those motions, and they work in volume, right? They'll have thousands of cases because everyone knows, oh, they do threshold cases. I'll send my case to them.
Interesting. So it's actually called threshold cases?
That's what they call it.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
interesting.
threshold case, meaning it's going to be a question of whether or not this plaintiff is going to be able to recover because their injury may not be serious enough
Gotcha.
under the
Got
law.
it.
And it's hard to tell somebody, I'm sorry, your injury is not serious enough.
Right.
So, I tell my lawyers, we're not using that terminology, right?
Right.
This
Right.
is
Right.
the legal.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
Yeah, because people are like, huh? What do you mean?
Yeah.
It's not serious. Then they're like,
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
right. So, my whole point here is we're able to say no. We don't take every case that comes in. We're selective. We have a high bar, and the case has to make a lot of sense for us financially in order for us to get involved. And I'd rather grow my firm that way than with quantity.
Mm.
It's more about quality. And the truth is, so the medical malpractice cases are by definition, very serious. We will only take serious cases. And the good thing about medical malpractice cases, one of the good things is there's always insurance. Car accidents, one of the first questions is say, well, what's the policy? Because the injury could be horrific. If it's a $25,000 or $100,000 policy, you ain't getting any more than that. But in medical malpractice cases, doctors and hospitals have loads and loads of insurance. So that's really never an issue. The value of the medical malpractice cases on average is a lot more than the other cases. So by way of example, like percentage wise, like right now, I would say that the med mal cases make up, say, 25% of my caseload.
Okay.
But they make up close to 50% of my income.
Okay.
What does that tell you? It tells you you're getting a hell of a lot more money on the medical malpractice settlements than you are on the general liability settlements.
Okay.
So there's more money in the medical malpractice cases. So,
Interesting.
well, and
Well, I mean, I mean, that makes sense, but I just, from my perspective, like you really kind of, that was very clear in the way you explained it.
yeah,
It's interesting. Yeah.
but that's a business decision.
Right. Totally. Yeah. I mean, you get to a point in your career where you know, you want to take those cases. You don't necessarily want the threshold cases. Now, does that come down to like an intake process? Like so it doesn't get up to you. Like it probably has to go through the intake. So you're not the one saying, "Hey, I'm sorry you broke your leg," but like that's not something that we're going to deal with right now.
Well, yeah, so it depends. And of course,
Okay.
in a perfect world, I wouldn't have to give bad news to anybody. I
Right. Right.
think I'm just, the good guy. So the intake process is huge, and it's become even huger with these mass torts.
Sure.
Because we now have a marketing department that's competing with these national firms to try to get leads for mass tort cases
Wow.
because we're starting to get involved in that. So the intake process has taken on a whole new definition here at the firm. But I will also say it's easier to do the intakes for the mass torts because those are much more, let me say, like cookie cutter, meaning you have to have very specific injuries and there's qualifications that you need to get into the mass tort, and it's a hard no if you don't meet all of them.
Okay.
So there's less judgment and analysis and thinking because it's check the box or you're out. A medical malpractice case, my intake people are on the phone for 45 minutes
Yeah. Yeah.
because every medical malpractice case is a story, and
Sure.
every story is unique. And every case is unique, and that is the truth. Because I have 5 failure to diagnose breast cancer cases, and they all involve radiological misses, and they're all very different. You
Okay.
think they're all the same? Very different.
No, no, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, no,
So,
I mean,
so
they, of course, yeah, the facts, it's all different facts.
right. But compare. So to do an intake for that case, you got to put a pillow behind you and say, okay, what's the story?
Right.
And and you're drinking coffee to stay awake, so you can hear,
Yeah.
as opposed to the mass tort now, which there's 5 boxes. How old are you? How long were you taking the drug? What do you have proof that you took the drug? And is your injury X, Y, or Z? I mean, one of these Depo-Provera is a contraception injectable
Mhm.
that was causing problems for women, and specifically people who took that drug would develop meningiomas, which are brain tumors, right?
Wow.
And so that's an existing mass tort, and we're taking those cases. Um, but if there's something else that you got from it, no case. And
Wow.
and if we have no proof that you took the drug, no case. So it's you check the box, and you say welcome to the party, or sorry we
Yeah.
can't have.
Yeah.
But it's an easier intake.
Yeah.
And even a car accident case, you got to get a lot of information, and it's not cookie cutter. So the intake process is involved. And to answer your question, oftentimes the lawyer or I will have to get on the phone, and a lot of it depends on how we got the case, right? So
Right.
I mentioned mass torts, and we have a marketing team because that's mostly from our marketing efforts. But the other stuff, most of our cases come from referring attorneys,
Mm.
people
Sure.
who have lawyers who don't do medical malpractice or don't do accident cases, and someone they know got hurt in a car accident or got hurt by a doctor's mistake, and they send the case, and we give a referral fee to
Right.
them.
Right. Of
So those sources are very important to me. And if I'm
course.
going to reject a case that one of those sources has sent to me, I'll pick up the phone and talk to that attorney and explain before I turn the case down to the client, because as soon as I turn the case down, the client's going to call that lawyer.
Right. Right.
So we're very careful. You call the referring attorney first, and you tell the referring attorney why we're not taking the case. So they're ready to get the call from the client saying we rejected the case. And
Right.
maybe he has another firm whose standards are a little lower. Maybe they're more aggressive, or they're
Sure.
more, and so he may or she may want to send them somewhere else. Or if I say no one's going to take this case, I'll tell the referring attorney, just tell them, this was an accident, and this was the risk of the procedure, or whatever
Right.
the case may be, and you should, this is what the universe intended, and it was nobody's fault. And quite honestly, many times I will tell the people it's good that you don't have a case, because who wants to know that something bad happened because it was someone else's fault? It was a mistake, and then all the anger and the emotion from that versus it was that person's time.
Right.
And this wasn't anybody's fault. It just happened. Things happen, and we can't blame things on everybody. And sometimes I tell people, especially, God forbid they lose a child or something very, very emotional, I say this is a blessing, because really at the end of the day, if you lost somebody, we're going to get money, and the money's not bringing anybody back. And this way, you can move on with your life now. If you come on for a medical malpractice case, a wrongful death case, we're in a long-term relationship now.
Right.
We're gonna be buddies for 5+ years.
Right.
You're gonna be calling. I'm gonna be calling. Yeah, and you're gonna be reliving this. You're gonna be reliving it. Oh, and is that healthy? Is that the best way to get past this? Probably not.
Right.
Probably not. And especially if it's a borderline case that we can prove, I say, just move on with your life, and you'll be happier. And nothing's changing anything. And this is what was meant to be. And sometimes people can live with that better than knowing it was someone's fault. And they want revenge, and they want to take the license away. I want the person's house. If it's a car accident case and there's a limited policy, go after the person. We don't do that.
Right.
We don't do that. And there's a lot of emotion involved in these things, for sure.
Yeah, totally. I'm sure you've seen it all at this point.
Yeah.
So is it true that you have a book that came out?
I have a book. I wrote a book with my wife.
That's awesome. Good for you.
Yes.
So
Yes.
can I say what it is? Is that all right?
Of course.
Yeah. So a new book. What lawyers don't know book?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. How to run a business and start loving life. It became a #1 new release on Amazon.
Yes.
So what inspired you to write it, and what do you want lawyers to take away from it?
Well, my wife inspired me. She is a life coach. She's my life coach, but
That's incredible.
Yeah, she's a life coach, and she's terrific. She's changed my life.
Love it.
And her whole philosophy of life and how to live life and how to be happy and how to be positive. I wasn't that way really before I met her, and I'm a lot more that way. I'm still learning, and she's still coaching and all that. But she's got this incredible energy and positivity about her, and that everybody who knows us knows her. And so that part of it, well, the way it happened was this happened during COVID.
Okay.
Because we were home, as everybody was. And I said, and I had just recently taken over the managing partner's role. And I would come home every day and say, I did not learn any of this in law school.
Yeah.
No one taught me how to be a managing partner. This wasn't part of being a lawyer. And I'm not a lawyer anymore. I'm a business person.
Right.
So people need to know this. And it was really targeted towards younger lawyers or even law students. I think it's better for even law students to know this coming out, that there's a business side of this. It's one thing to know the law and to research stuff and to figure out how to win an argument. It's another thing to run a business.
Sure.
It's a whole different thing. So, and even at that point, I was still learning. I'm still learning, but I was even younger and not, as involved as I am now. And so I said I should write this out. So I would write a chapter and I would show it to her and say, what do you think? And then she says, well, if you're really loving life, you really should write this, that, and the other. I'm like, okay. And then I came back again. What do you think of this? Well, you're not really loving life if you're doing that. And so I said, why don't you write the book? And then so then we compromised, and I said, okay, for every chapter I write, I'm going to write how the lawyer perceives it, and then you're going to write how they should feel, how they should do it within themselves, how they should, start loving life as, in this aspect of being, a business person, and what their mindset should be and what their attitude should be and how they should perceive it and all that stuff. So every concept has 2 chapters, one from Jeff and then one from Con.
That's awesome.
And so that's the format of the book.
What a cool collaboration. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was great.
Congrats on that. And in 2019, New York Law Journal recognized you as a trailblazer and agent of change. So what does that mean to you to be recognized by the New York Law Journal as like a trailblazer and an agent. I mean, that's a cool term to be, like a trailblazer, you know?
I thought it was very cool. I thought it was very cool, to be honest. Because I was doing some things that I never knew, a lawyer would be expected to do. And I was changing things around in the firm in certain ways. I mean, things have changed a lot since 2019. But back then, we were implementing certain things and hiring certain people, and people were noticing. Like one example was, Marvin had tons of friends. Everybody was Marvin's friend. And so, and he was older. He was always old.
He was always old. Okay.
He always looked old. He was always an old man. But he was wonderful. And he had a lot of friends, and some of his friends worked for defense firms, and they were forced into retirement because they had, limits in their partnership agreements, whatever. So around that time, when I became the managing partner, he would be talking about his friends who were retired. They still wanted to do some work, and they were doing per diem work for these defense firms. And I said, well, why don't we hire? So some of these guys had tremendous experience, especially the med mal guys.
Yeah.
They had been defending medical malpractice cases for 30, 40 years.
Right. Wow.
And so I said to Marvin, I said, well, why don't we hire a couple of these guys as consultants? So when we're going to try a case, we can get a better view of what the defense is going to be. Because that's one thing about medical malpractice in New York. There's no depositions of experts. So it's all done on paper. And the paper is worded in such a way that nobody says anything. You don't really know what they're thinking.
Right.
So we're always sort of surprised at what happens at trial, even though it's not supposed to be that way in the med mal world. So now we have somebody who's been there for 40 years advising us what he thinks the strategy is going to be for the other side.
Wow.
And it really helped us. It really helped us tremendously. And so, so things like that we were thinking of and implementing that was a little, off color or off the books or whatever.
Yeah. No, that's a cool way to approach it. And so you have been invited to provide legal analysis on CNN, ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, and more. So how do those opportunities come about? And like, how does being a commentator and analyst like help you with your trial work?
Well, it's great. I mean, for those things at that time, we had good PR people who had, connections with stations and stuff. I was on like the Montel Williams show,
Oh, nice. Okay.
Okay. So, I was mostly on for cases that we had during those times. And we had some very high profile cases that got a lot of press. And the coverage was pretty extensive. Some of it was national. And it was great. It was great exposure for us. And then I was getting requests from reporters to just comment on cases that were in the news.
Okay.
I was happy to do that because obviously I follow the news. I follow what's going on in the cases, and I would give my opinions about, the strengths of the cases and the trials going on, who's doing well, who's not, who I thought wasn't doing well. And this was, I guess Court TV was out, but that would have been a great gig to get because that's 24/7 cases. But it was great. It was great, exposure, and Marvin would do some of them, and I would do some of them, and my partner Joe Bavaro, who's really the top trial lawyer now in the firm. He's taken over really from Marvin, and his reputation is incredible. And now he's getting multi-million-dollar case verdicts every year. And listen, he can tell you too. Marvin was his mentor in every way that Marvin was my mentor, and so he now has these opportunities to have this kind of exposure, and he's getting the results too.
That's great. So as someone who mentors young attorneys, what mistakes do you see like newer lawyers make most often, and how do you guide them to recover from it?
Well, I think we covered it. It's what I said. That like even when I'm lecturing people, I don't want them to be me. And so that's the thing. That is the biggest thing I see is people. Well, and also like reading. Someone who gets up there and reads an opening statement or reads a summation. It's like, I don't know. there are things you can say if you're going to read something, but to me, it's all about eye contact.
Do you see people doing that, like doing like opening?
Yeah, well, yes, I do.
Wow.
Unfortunately, and it's always jarring to me to see that. But at the same time, I always give people, even in my lectures, I say, listen, if it's your first trial and you want to read something and you only feel comfortable, I said, then do it. But say something like, this case is so, I'm going to read this now because this is so important to my client that I don't want to forget anything. So I wrote this down because I don't want you to not hear everything that is important here.
Yeah.
Give a reason why you do it.
Sure. Yep. I like that.
Listen, ideally you wouldn't want to do that. But overall, the biggest thing is for people to imitate who their mentors are, or who they see. Like Marvin always encouraged me as a young lawyer. I would go to court in the morning, and then you had to come back to the office. And he said, after you finish your court appearance, walk around the courthouse. If there's any trial going on, you stay and you watch that trial, and you come back and tell me what you liked about what the attorneys did and what you didn't like about what the attorneys did. And Bob Sack, he hated that. He's like, get him back to the office. He's got work to do. Like, what the hell? What is it? We entertain Jeff time? Is that what it is?
Right.
Why did you go to the movies? Maybe. So, but Marvin was, he'd say, yeah, don't go. And then he'd say, just go. So I would see a lot of bad lawyering. You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
What people, and it takes practice, it's trial and error and all that stuff. But the biggest mistake is really not being genuine. And I will also say, not being prepared. It's horrible when it becomes obvious that someone just doesn't know the case. And, they make statements that are wrong, and then they get exploited. It's embarrassing. So if there's anything you that is in your control, it's the facts of the case. Know the depositions, know what the testimony is, and know the medical records. Know what's really in there and know it's not. Because I have a lot of examples of attorneys making claims in front of a jury that it's nowhere in the records, and then I'd say it's in the records. So those things is just be prepared and be yourself.
Do lawyers really try to memorize the opening, or do they just kind of just say like what it is? Like, do they just get so comfortable, like as the years go on, that they're just kind of doing it from?
It's a style. Joe Bavaro, he won't even practice his opening. He wants it to be top of mind, conversational. He doesn't want it to be rehearsed at all.
Okay.
So he won't write anything down. He'll just think about it.
Okay.
I write out my entire opening, word for word. I sit and I write it and I rewrite it and I rewrite it. And then when I get it, I throw it out, and I just have for every paragraph like 2 buzzwords.
Okay.
So I keep that down in case I forget, the buzzwords I'm skipping a paragraph, or something.
Right.
But I write it out because I want to rehearse it in my mind. I want to get in front of a mirror and sort of say some things and see how I'm looking and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So 2 very different styles, and again, works for me. If I did what he does, I wouldn't sleep.
Right.
Before.
Right.
I'm like,
find your own style. Yeah. What's that? Sorry.
I didn't prepare. I'm not what am I going to say?
Yeah. I hear you. Okay. So, Jeff, is there anything we left out today, like that you want to cover? I know we
didn't talk about you, man.
Oh no, not on the podcast. No, nobody needs to know about me. This was amazing, man. You're like a wealth of info and great career.
Thank you.
Is there anything you wanted to touch upon or leave us with? Or
no, I'm just happy that my career has taken these drastic pivots. Don't be afraid to completely change course if that's where the universe is taking you. So I became the managing partner. I had no clue that was ever going to happen.
Yeah.
And when Bob Sack died, he was the managing partner. It was me, Marvin, and Joe. We looked at each other and we said, well, who's going to do that? And nobody answered. So we went a year without a managing partner. We had the office manager do it.
Right.
Didn't work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then I just said, okay, I'll do it. I went to a business school, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And so I reluctantly did it. And now I'm thrilled that I did it.
Yeah.
I have a whole new chapter in my life. Like my whole day and job is completely different than it was, and for the better. And now it's pivoting again into these mass torts. And now I'm looking at marketing and intakes and how to, get into this world. And it's a smooth transition because, like I said, the subject matter is very similar. The medicine, the trial work and all that stuff. So, to me, that's exciting. And to me,
Right.
I want to keep learning and keep shifting and keep myself challenged.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, listen, Joe's going to try cases forever. And he's great at it. He loves it. He also loves playing golf.
Yeah. Hey.
So those are his two passions, and that's what he does. If he's not trying a case, he's playing golf.
Why not?
And God bless him. I love when he plays golf because also that's when he's networking and meeting people.
Sure.
So that's great. I hate golf, and I'm not trying cases anymore. I get involved with the strategies and stuff, and I go to court to watch, but I can't actually try a case. I don't have the time because I got all these other things going on. But that's that's the message I'm saying. I'm sending is go where life takes you, and embrace it.
I love that. I love that.
And you got to be happy, and you got to be in your comfort zone. And sometimes it's not when you do these transitions. Sometimes it's like contrast and it's hard and challenging. But if that's what's meant to be, that's what's meant to be. And I'm just happy that I've had these different chapters. And it hasn't been just like one chapter or one story. And I think there's going to be even more chapters, going forward.
Well, I can't wait to hear about them. We will stay in touch, so.
For sure.
Stay right there, Jeff. It was a pleasure to have you on. Like, such a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, so stay right there. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in. Wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves.